before I tell you what we're going to be doing, I just want you to know how critical it is right here and now. There are not many moving pieces left. I could go from here to the trial on Monday. Then I will be spending the rest of my time outside the Department of Justice with the evidence that will put these people in jail. I need your help. I'm going to ask you to call. Call while I'm going there to make sure that I do get there. Let the Department of Justice and the President know that I am there with the evidence to deliver to them. You see, we can win this. This is the winning formula. And when I tell you the corrupt are watching, we are in the presence of evil, and this is the fight that we're fighting. If we lose here, and they stop me, and they've seen you watching, they know my method. They know my strategy. My strategy is to disclose to you, show you the evidence, have you confront your own fears and say we've got to accept that we are living in this corruption and we've got to do something as a society to stop it. Because if we lose here now, I want you to see what I see that made me not take $50 million. Is that kind of evil and greed unchecked. Already addiction is the leading cause of death for the under 50. This is the net result. Do I have to tell you what's going on in family court and the industries that these control? This is an opportunity to open a door to expose corruption across this country. I never did this for just the state of New Hampshire, but I sacrificed and did this to buy 10 years to one moment for every state. Okay, now I'm going to start and tell you where we are and why it's important. I'm in the conference room just outside the courtroom for another contempt. We're going to run the gauntlet again. This is about the sign. And more importantly, what's on my sign, on my message centers. I put the drug dealers up there, the corrupt politicians. I've outed these individuals because law enforcement wouldn't. So now they've got to shut these signs off. And they're doing it criminally. This is a Steve Gordon operation, and it ties into my trial with these drug cartels on Monday. I've got a new witness now that came forward yesterday that has over 10 subpoenas that were filed with the Brentwood court. That's why Judge Delker had to come off. Eileen Landy, before they recruited her, she filed those without me knowing. I just found out yesterday. That means there's registered with the clerk of court subpoenas for 5 state troopers that arrested these people, for State Senator Sanborn, for Congressman Ginta. They registered them, which is why they transferred the case to Tucker. And what happened with Tucker was, it was always an inside move with the clerk of courts to violate. Now, I'll show you that information. But this is to shut down the sign to tell you what's going on. They're going to shut down Facebook and state of corruption so I can't tell you. They're going to turn around and shut my signs down. That's what this is, the contempt. Now think about this. A contempt when I have it in writing that they accepted the appeal. The Supreme Court. I have it in writing that Gordon is threatening Goldstein and this attorney Cronin. In writing. Cronin, the lawyer for Goldstein, who's the co-tenant in the building. He turned around and said in front of us, in a group, Greg, did he not say on a speakerphone, knowing he was on a speakerphone, that Gordon was extorting him?
That's correct.
So now, what we found out is that Gordon's extorting them too. And he's calling all our witnesses and extorting them. This is what this is. And they got to shut this sign down or literally throw me in jail. Now, I want you to know this building I bought 10 years before Goldstein. There was never a condo agreement. It is unsigned because I bought the building before they even set up a condo. All right, we're doing this video by phone because I believe they're going to take the chip from the camera. I also believe there's a chance that I could be going to jail again. So rather than seize the cameras and the chip, I've got two individuals who are going to post this. If one gets caught, the other one gets through. Let's hope I get to talk to you again today. But more importantly, I want you to listen what's in this courtroom. I want you to know Judge Metzger was appointed by then Governor Hassan, who's now Senator Hassan, who I said was part of that corrupt Senate race. I called it out. I put her on my sign. I put Shaheen, who she's working for, on my sign. And you see that, Judge Metzger? She was appointed by Hassan. Mike Gill.
I'm going for Marcus Management, seated with me at
Good morning, sir.
Michael Gill, representing myself, the mortgage specialist.
All right, we're here on a motion for contempt filed by the plaintiff, so I will hear from the plaintiff first. Attorney Cronin?
Please support, Your Honor, by order of August 8, 2017, you issued a temporary injunction in this case, ordering Mr. Gill and the mortgage specialists to limit the displays on their billboard advertising in the condominium property business related to mortgage specialists. Unfortunately, that action, conduct, has not ceased. It remains the same today by way of offer of proof. Mr. Wilson testified that that continues as it has prior to the hearing.
Could you speak up, Mr. Cronin, please?
Your Honor, we went through this the last time, and I know Mr. Gill has a right to take a look at these proceedings. I'm comfortable at this tone. I would ask that the court provide him with some listening devices so that he can hear properly.
All right, Attorney Cronin, Mr. Gill, you can sit down. I will ask you to speak into the microphone so that everybody can hear, and it shouldn't be an issue. If you can't hear and we need to provide him a device, but to the extent that you're able to accommodate by speaking up, I would appreciate that.
Your Honor, I'm sitting right next to him, 2 feet away.
Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Mr. Gill, I've asked him to speak up, so I'll let him finish. If you can't hear, let me know, and as I say, we do have assistive listening devices that we can provide.
Thank you. I'll do my best, Your Honor. I've never been accused of being soft-spoken, but I'll do my best to elevate my voice so Mr. Gill can hear my remarks.
Thank you.
Just to repeat, Your Honor, the critical issue in this case, the conduct which you are restrained by a temporary injunction continues. Mr. Gill attempted to file an appeal and did file a document with the New Hampshire Supreme Court. The court will note that that's an interlocutory appeal under the rules of the Supreme Court. But that appeal does not meet the requirements. Specifically, to my knowledge, I saw no notice, I saw no copy that Your Honor signed off on that interlocutory appeal, which is a prerequisite to that filing. Notwithstanding the validity of that interlocutory appeal, there is precedent for the court's consideration that it has continuing discretion in jurisdiction of collateral matters, such as temporary orders. I cite to the case of Rottenberg versus Muniz. That's reported in New Hampshire reports at 120. I have copies of it for the court. 107-446. That's a case that was taken up on appeal. That case says that generally speaking, when a proper appeal is filed, jurisdiction would vest in the Supreme Court on matters related to the case at bar. However, it does note that for temporary orders, the court retains its jurisdiction to maintain the status quo. The status quo in this case, Your Honor, is your order, your temporary injunction that was issued. That principle of law is further announced in the case of Rollins versus Rollins, which specifically and expressly holds that the court has continuing jurisdiction on matters of temporary orders. I also have a case for you to cite. Thirdly, Your Honor, Mr. Gill, as his own counsel, I think has been cautioned by this court and many of the others that he appears in, that he's bound to follow the rules. And some say, often say, that those people that represent themselves often have a fool for a lawyer. That may or may not be the case in this particular matter, Your Honor.
Overruled. Please sit down.
Okay. If you take a look at Rule 7A, there's a provision that's available to address Mr. Gill's concerns. Mr. Gill had the right to file a motion under 7A with the Supreme Court seeking a stay of your order. That motion has not been filed. If it has been filed, I have not seen a copy of it. Your Honor, I think it's very clear that your order deserves enforcement. The condominium association, which is controlled by Martin's management, has controls over the electrical facilities in the building. Our motion for contempt, Your Honor, seeks permission for us to terminate the power to the billboard signs, because it appears that that's the only way to get compliance with your order. We recognize that's on a temporary basis, and we would ask that the court look favorably on our motion and grant that ruling.
All right, I do have one question for you. In your motion, I believe you indicated that were the court to grant that request, that you would seek to go in, remove the breaker, and change the locks, and give the key to the court. I guess I'm a little bit confused as to why you would be asking for the court to have the key, which, by the way, I won't do. But I want to better understand what that request is for.
I fully understand, Your Honor. Without having an escrow agent or some third party, certainly if Mr. Gill was represented by a member of the bar bound by our rules of ethics, I would have no issue providing a key to that particular person. Absent that, I'm not comfortable with that situation, and it would defeat the relief that we're seeking. I could understand why the court would not want the key and will not accept responsibility for the key. But I think the thrust of that piece of the motion, Your Honor, if the court felt more comfortable and Mr. Gill's rights were more protected by placing a key with a third party, would be willing to do that.
All right, but otherwise, your client would maintain the key, and to the extent that the court issued an order that allowed for subsequent turning on of the signs, contingent on the signs being consistent with the order, the parties could communicate about that, and your client would then utilize the key to enter the breaker room with Mr. Gill. Is that right?
Absolutely, maybe with some third parties, whether it's the Manchester Police or the Sheriff or something like that. We have no intent to cause any harm to the billboard or the systems. All we want to do is get enforcement of your order.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Gill?
You're wrong. What I did wasn't in contempt, Your Honor. Right after the hearing, I filed an appeal with the Supreme Court. Now, the court was notified of this. Attorney Cronin was notified as such. And the information we got back from the Supreme Court wasn't that this wasn't something that we could do, but in fact it said direct all communications to the Supreme Court, and they gave us a very direct case number. So it wasn't that I was in contempt, it was that I was under the impression and the information and was given to the court, and this copy came out of this court, that we were under an appeal. And I felt very strong with the appeal, seeing that if the volunteered letter that Mr. Cronin had given me with the extortion from Bill Shaheen, Steve Gordon, and most notably Mr. McLaughlin, you'll see that Mr. Cronin volunteered that. I thought that unusual. He talked to me on the speaker when knowingly there was witnesses in the room, referring to the fact that Steve Gordon is extorting him. Now it's Steve Gordon.
Objection. I'll just take it.
Excuse me.
Hold on.
Objection.
So I'm going to overrule it for now and hear this.
It is relevant because this is being orchestrated as an extortion, and I feel the Supreme Court will see it this way. Because in this threatening letter, you can see that Mr. McLaughlin had the condo agreement prior and gave the instructions to Cronin to attack. But I'm saying to you, Your Honor, most importantly, and you have seen this as evidence, and in your hearing you would see Mr. Cronin go very thoroughly through the condo agreement, and that was the basis of their case. I never signed the condo agreement.
Right.
Excuse me, Your Honor, the condo agreement didn't exist when the purchase and sales was. So, again, on the appeal, in the likelihood of winning, this is extortion. The reason why Cronin's making it so open, and as you remember, in court, he didn't deny it. is because that's his out. The information on that sign, remind you, when he refers to attorneys, half the people on there are my attorneys, and I only went through about 40 million.
All
So-
right, Mr. Gill, I just want to stop you for a second because I want to talk about what's relevant to this proceeding. I understand that you disagree with my order, and you're entitled, hold on. The issue before the court is whether you're in contempt for not following that order. I understand that you disagree with it.
No, Your Honor, I wasn't that I disagreed that I would continue playing it, because that would be contempt. What I did was file an appeal with the Supreme Court. They acknowledged the appeal and gave it a case number and told me to direct all information to them. So I am telling you, Your Honor, I didn't know anything about a stay. I'm not an attorney. But I did file the appeal, and they gave me the appeal, and I used that as the basis of keeping it on.
Okay, but you understand that you are, so we agree that there was an order and that you knew about the order, correct?
And that it was appealed.
And yes, and that you did file what you consider to be an appeal in the
Well,
Supreme
what I have
Court.
is evidence that the Superior Court accepted his appeal and gave it a case number. So I had very strong confidence that in fact, it was under appeal. Now, I've appealed many cases.
So Ellen, let me just ask you this, Mr. Gill. So if I were to issue an order that said that this court rules that the filing of that appeal doesn't stay the injunction issued in my order, are you telling me you would then
I
immediately?
would adhere to it.
And so within 24 hours, you'll take down the
I would.
messages?
But I would ask you this, Your Honor. I would ask you to clarify. We have no clarified messages. We have the people up there who tried to murder me, and my attorneys and the drug dealers. I am asking this court, they're just saying business. I'm asking this court if I can put an American flag on the sign.
All right, Mr.
Well, what can I
Gill,
put on the sign, Your Honor? I will, on your orders, I will follow them to the T.
Okay,
Okay? When I'm asking you, can I have an American flag? Can I have live free or die? Can I have President Trump's photo? And God bless America. So there'll be 4 just panels and then just race. So there'll be nothing derogatory. There'll be nothing about Senator Hassan, who's in the race fix. That's why I have her up there. It's being investigated. And I'm one of the witnesses. But I will adhere to everything that you're saying.
okay. All right, very good. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes. Could I have, before I leave the courtroom, seeing you're going to give me 24 hours,
I'm not saying what I'm not
I
saying
know,
what
we
my
know you
ruling
are.
is going to be.
could you allow me those 4 pieces on the sign? Could I leave with that clarification? Because they want to pull the electricity. I remind you that I'm in a heat trial with these drug dealers, which evidence to murder me, and he wants to take it off days before we go into that trial. So I'm just telling you, Your Honor, I'll adhere to every decision. But I want you to know that that sign's helping keeping me alive.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gill. Is there anything you'd like to add, Attorney Cronin?
And just to submit the cases for your reference,
Yes, I'll ask the court officers, Steve, can you?
let the record reflect I've given Mr. Gill copies. They can be marked as one exhibit for 2 cases and a citation.
That's fine, thank you. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll take this under advisement, and I anticipate getting an order out as quickly as
Your Honor,
possible.
Thank you.
Could you answer me one question, Your Honor? Just why is it that appeal that I filed, it sounds like you're in a position where you can overrule it or put the injunction in before it's heard. Am I correct about that?
I can't give you any legal advice, Mr. Gill.
So you're saying this is an interlocutory appeal where you close down the ability for me to appeal. So in other words, I can't appeal to the Supreme Court. Isn't that so?
I can't give you any
But
legal
that's gonna
advice,
be
and
your
I
order.
won't. I will issue my orders, and you can review them at that time. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why do you look familiar?
Doug Alden from the Union Leader.
Here's something.
Okay, give me a second.
You want me to wait for this other gentleman also, or we can go now if you like.
Well, give me a second so I can get it too. If you don't
So
mind.
the union leader's got to sell this bullshit, right? The union's got to sell it. Who's your biggest customer?
Give me a second.
Auto Fair, the plaintiffs. I've given you guys evidence. I've given you evidence. You guys said nothing. You're covering these. So what I'm going to tell you is, there is an electoral investigation right now, right?
Okay.
AOC's on that sign.
Okay.
Trump, you think Trump's going to miss the opportunity not to turn around and show a corrupt election that Bill Shaheen won? On the same courtroom Tucker was in, They leveraged Aaron Day for $20 million. He was running against Hansen. That's how they did it, right? So in other words, this is going to be investigated. Shaheen's running for cover. This here is to try to take these murderers off the sign. Now I gave the union leader evidence, Kill Gill. Did you listen to the hit guy who was hired?
I actually did.
You did. Now what do you think about that?
I have no idea who it was on the other line.
Jeremy Girdner. You said his name.
Well, that's fine. I don't know.
All right, well, now I know it.
Conversation.
Jeremy Girdner. Write this down so you can call him. I get his number and all. He was the lead salesman of Auto Fair for 7 years. He's also a collector for the Greek Mafia and the Italian Mafia. He said it. Did you hear him say that they would ask him to murder me?
I believe he said that they had asked him to hurt you.
No. They asked him first, how much... Oh, then, well, listen, if you're going to say it, let's get it right. Just so happens it's about me, so I have maybe a clearer... He says, how much to hurt him? And then he goes, how much to make him go away? So how do you interpret go away? So go sell your bullshit and papers, because when this goes down, you guys have something to explain. How did you make them Businessman of the Year? How did you make... Oh, Agonos Businessman of the Year. Cruz is Dealer of the Year. No kidding. And you guys help with all that. Right? Who's your biggest client? Would you like to tell everybody that? Who brings in more money to the union leader?
I really don't know that.
Really? How long you worked for the union leader for?
4 or 5 years.
4 to 5 years. So you don't know who your biggest client is?
I don't.
If I told you Auto Fair, would you disagree with me?
Probably.
You would.
I don't know.
Really? Who would you, if you're going to disagree with me?
I don't know. Mike, let's
If
talk
you-
about what happened in the hearing today, okay?
Well, I'm
That's
telling you
what-
what's really happening.
I don't want.
You're
what's
not
really
going to
happening.
write really happening. Oh, you don't want? Did you hear that? You don't want to know what's really happening. What's really happening is they are your biggest client, and you got to sell this bullshit. Get his face. Go ahead. Is there anything else you want? Good. See this. Who do you work for?
Just an independent internet.
You don't mind telling me the name.
I'm a friendly face, and
A friendly face that won't tell me your name. Usually friendly faces tell me your name.
told
And I
you
already know you.
What happened in there?
What happened in there? Well, let's take a
You
look.
had some word-
I've got a trial with the drug dealers.
I get that.
The lawyers, you know, the information they tried to murder me, which it seems to slip your fucking mind, as it did Tucker.
Did you, Your Honor, receive a stack of evidence this high? And I'm asking the court, did you review that evidence, Your Honor, before you made a decision and before you said we didn't have any witnesses? Did you review the
A
evidence?
decision on what?
Excuse me.
A decision on what?
He just said, Your Honor, Gordon,
No, what are you saying I decided?
I'm asking you, did you look at the evidence that I did submit? The witnesses, the text messages that were afraid for their lives, afraid for being murdered. Did you review that
I
evidence?
reviewed everything you gave me, Mr. Gill.
Thanks. So you did listen to the gentleman who said that he was hired by these individuals to murder me. You did hear that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago that you filed it.
Listen, Your Honor, if somebody was on audio threatening to murder you, I would remember. Are you telling me that they threatened to murder me, and you're telling me you don't remember?
All right, we're not going to argue anymore about this.
You don't remember they were going to kill
We'll be
me.
back here on September.
Right. They have to take the information off the signs. Trump's coming. Trump's coming. Listen, he gets Shaheen, he drains the swamp. He gets Shaheen, there goes your election fraud, and you take out 2 Democratic senators.
Let's talk about
That's
it.
what happened in
I'm
there.
checking in, Mike.
No,
What
no.
happened in there?
That
You were
is what
telling
happened in
Messer-
there.
No, you were telling Messer you were
Take
gonna,
the shots. No, that is what happened in
You
there.
said you were going to take down or adhere to our order. But what do you expect the order to be? What are you
What do
telling
you think the order to be?
I don't
All right,
know. I'm
let
not
me do this. You ready?
speculating.
I'm going to put on my Karnak the Magnificent hat. On, you ready? Here's the order. Take all your shit off the sign. There you go.
And if she orders you to do that, what are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to comply. And I'm going to put up President Trump for help. I'm going to put up God Bless America. You see, I'm going to say live free or die. Because guess what? They fucked up. They brought attention to this. Those drug dealers have been on there for 2 years. Now people are going to ask why they're off. And it's not because they're not drug dealers. You know, you're covering up for them. Not that they're not drug dealers. You think it's funny? You don't even know your biggest customer. Who's your biggest customer? Who do you think it might be?
I don't know. That's not my job. I'm a reporter. I don't sell
Oh,
out.
yeah? You ain't report. How about this? Did you report on the Hope Treatment Center? Did you report on the Hope
I've
Treatment
written
Center?
about Hope.
Right. Did you hear about how they said that they were selling drugs out of there and insurance fraud after I had said they were doing it? Isn't that owned by Aganos and Cruz and Griner? Right? Did you investigate those? Do we have a list of people out of the treatment center who are calling us this? Didn't these guys wouldn't answer their calls? They wouldn't return their calls. There you go, you piece of shit.